Hello, and welcome to another edition of Barca Fan Voice. Yes, we're still in lockdown, I'm afraid, and there's still very little news going on, so today I thought I'd tell you about what I've been reading. And before telling you more about this book, I'm going to do a bit of a book review of some football books and some Barca books. So, here goes. So, first up is a must for all Barca fans. You probably know this book, Barca, A People's Passion by Jimmy Burns. This is the book you want if you want to know about Barca's history, their roots, the politics and tradition. It came out to coincide with the centenary of Barca in 1999, and it's a perfect book to know about the first 100 years of Barca. I'd definitely give this book a 10 out of 10. Next up is another must-read for Barca fans, Sid Lowe's fantastic Fear and Loathing in La Liga. It's an in-depth look at the history of Barca and Real Madrid, which explains the origins of the intense rivalry between the two clubs. And it takes us right up to the Guardiola-Mourinho rivalry and the Messi-Cristiano rivalry. A fantastic book. It's another 10 out of 10 for me. Moving on now to Graham Hunter's Barca, The Making of the Greatest Team in the World. Another very good book. More than anything, it's a study of Barca under Pep Guardiola. There are in-depth player profiles on Messi, Alves, Valdez, Xavi, Pedro, Busquets, Abidal. Plenty of information, interviews, etc. In fact, my only problem with this book is the structure, which is a little bit disjointed at times, but overall a very good book, and I'd give it 8 out of 10. Next up we have Richard Fitzpatrick's El Clásico, which is another look at football's greatest rivalry, Barcelona and Real Madrid. It covers a lot of similar ground that I've covered in other books, but there are exclusive interviews with Luis Figo, Christo Stoichkov, Joan Laporta and Vicente Del Bosque. It's a decent read. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Moving on now to some biographies. First we have Guillem Balaguer's Pep Guardiola, Another Way of Winning. Another in-depth study of Guardiola at Barca, his philosophy and his methods. It's probably the best attempt to get inside Pep Guardiola's head that there is. And as it's written a little bit later than the other books, it includes Guardiola's move to Bayern Munich. Overall another decent read, I'll give it 8 out of 10. Next we have another biography by Guillem Balaguer, this time Messi, which is over 600 pages on your favourite player. No doubt if you love Messi you'll enjoy this book. It goes into his childhood, his upbringing, his move to Barcelona at a young age, how that affected him. And it basically goes into as much detail about Messi's life as you could possibly imagine. Perhaps for me this would be the main criticism of this book. While it certainly goes into every detail of Messi's life, you could perhaps argue that there's too much information in here. But if you want to know everything about Messi, this is the book for you. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Next we have an autobiography. This time it's Luis Suarez, Crossing the Line. Suarez tells his story with no holds barred. There's a lot on his upbringing in Uruguay, but there's also an attempt to deal with the problems he faced early in his career. The biting incidents, the controversial incident with Patrice Evra, and it all makes for a very interesting story. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. And this brings me to the best autobiography of the lot. I Am Zlatan Ibrahimovic by Zlatan Ibrahimovic. A fantastic read. This controversial character tells everything. He doesn't mind getting on the wrong side of anyone. Tells it how it is, according to him, of course. But it's a book full of controversy, and it's an excellent insight into one of the great characters of the game. There are a few genuinely great football autobiographies. This is one of them. Go out and buy it and read it. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Moving on now to general football books. As I said, the book that I'm reading at the moment, Zonal Marking by Michael Cox. I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this book. It's a fantastic insight into tactics in European football over the last 30 years. It supplies profiles of many of the leading coaches of the era, from Cruyff to Lippi, Capello, Sacchi, and although I haven't finished the book yet, it goes on to later eras of Klopp and Guardiola in England at the end. I'd highly recommend this book if you're interested in football tactics and the evolution of the game. No doubts for me, I might not have finished it yet, but this is a 10 out of 10. Other books worth mentioning. There's Brian Clough, The Biography, Nobody Ever Says Thank You by Jonathan Wilson. Now, any book about Clough is worth a read. One of the most colourful, interesting characters the game's ever produced. The man who took Nottingham Forest to 2 European Cup finals and won them both. This is probably the best book on Clough that you'll ever find. It's a great writer and a great subject matter. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Now, if you want an insider look on the game, there's nothing better than I Am the Secret Footballer. Now, of course, we don't know who this is by, even though there are many suggestions that it's Danny Murphy, but this tells many insider stories of the game. Doesn't usually mention names, but it tells a lot of stories about professional footballers and the things that they get up to. For me, it's another 9 out of 10. One more book worth mentioning on football tactics. It's another by Jonathan Wilson, this time Inverting the Pyramid, The History of Football Tactics. Superbly researched, this book, a look back at football tactics through Europe, going back to the very earliest days of football's development. Another one that's definitely worth 9 out of 10. And finally, I couldn't finish without mentioning probably my favourite football book of all time. All Played Out by Pete Davis. This is the full story of the World Cup in Italy in 1990, mainly following the English team, it has to be admitted, but it's a fantastic story. It changed the style of football books. Beautifully written, an insight into the fans at the tournament. If you've never been to a World Cup, this is probably a great book to read to get a full taste of what it's like. Definitely a 10 out of 10 for me. I think you can still find it on Amazon. It's a great read, I highly recommend it. Of course, I couldn't finish without mentioning my own book, Barca the Guardiola Years. Perhaps it lacks the interviews that you get in the other books, but if you want an account of Guardiola's 4 years at Barcelona and a look at some of the matches, then I'm sure you'll enjoy this. Well, okay, that's all for me for today. Have a great weekend, folks. I'll be back on Monday. We'll see if there's any news. Until then, Biscal Barca. Bye for now.